Welcome back to Montreal Connected. The Montreal Canadiens kicked off the regular season this week, so we've brought in our hockey experts today to talk about it. Welcome Jeremy Filosa, 98.5 Radio. Hi, how are you?
Hi.
I know you want to talk about boxing, but we're going to talk about fighting.
That's all right.
Fighting today, if that's
Close
all right
enough.
with you.
Good,
And Sean Gordon from the Globe and Mail, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Obviously, Tuesday night was a season opener. We'd love to talk about the game, but unfortunately in the third period, the life was sucked right out of that game, sucked right out of the bench, sucked out of the press box. I'm talking about the unfortunate incident that happened with George Parros. Now, clearly this has reopened the debate about whether fighting should be accepted in the league or not. I'd like to know where you guys think the NHL has to go from here.
Well, I mean, I think the NHL will just keep going with what they're doing right now because I think that they think that they need this in the sport to sell it. So I don't think they're going anywhere with this. Now, personally, I can't stand it. I find it disgusting, and I can't stand listening to fans telling me this is an isolated incident. It just happens once in a while. I mean, these two guys fought 2 years ago, and we had a similar incident where Orr slipped and smashed his face on the ice. So when do we start saying, okay, we might have a problem here?
Where they should go and where they're going to go are two different things.
Right.
I mean, look, I watch a lot of international rugby. Rugby is a very hard and occasionally vicious sport. There's lots of hits in rugby, guys getting smoked all the time. You don't have to turn around and fight a guy when you hit a guy clean. If you fight in rugby, you get tossed from the game and usually you get suspended. It's not tolerated. And this is the problem. Hockey fighting is illegal. You get penalized for it. You're not supposed to do it. Except it's tolerated, and that's wrong. But the thing is, I actually don't blame the league or the players or anything like this. I blame the fans. I blame the consumers. People are standing up and cheering and going nuts for George Parros when he gets up in the introductions and when he goes and fights. And all of a sudden, they're quiet when the poor guy ends up getting very badly injured. And then all of a sudden, oh, well, I guess we'll cheer again because, hey, the Habs are going to draw to one
It's entertainment, and fighting is entertaining to the fans.
To me, if there's a market for it, people are going to try and occupy that market and sell to that market, and I actually think that there's some introspection needed on the part of fans here.
Now, no one in the locker room was talking about fighting being banned afterwards.
Right.
Although the argument can be raised that had George Parros and Colton Orr not been fighting, this wouldn't have happened.
Of course it wouldn't have happened. I mean, he fell because the other guy was holding on to his shirt, and that's why he fell down. I mean, if Parros is going down on a breakaway, certainly he doesn't smash his face on the ice. But what bothers me is what you just said. I mean, I was in the locker room this week right after that game. I'm talking to players, and nobody is willing to say, you know what, maybe we should take a look at this. And it makes me think of when I used to cover baseball and we had an issue with steroids, and nobody had, sorry to say, the balls to say, we might have a problem here. We may want to look at this. It's a big lack of leadership, I find, in this league.
And you know what? The traditions of a sport end up being sort of the stricture of the sport. It's like a straitjacket that they're stuck in, and they need to bust out of it. And here's the thing. If there was no fighting in the NHL, George Parros and Colton Orr are not in the NHL.
Right.
It's that simple. And it sucks for those guys who make a lot of money doing what they do. Beg your pardon.
And the same is true for many other players.
Yeah, but
well.
I mean, here's the deal. Like, if there was no fighting, they would give those spots to people who play actual hockey.
Right.
Question number 2 now, or 3 or 4. George Parros is out indefinitely, as we know. He suffered a concussion. Douglas Murray out 4 to 6 weeks. Those were the 2 clear acquisitions over the summer that Marc Bergevin was trying to address team toughness. What do the Canadiens do now?
Well, I think, the fact is that this is the other sad fact, is that guys like this are out there. If they want to get another slugger, they can find other sluggers. But maybe this is sort of like a sign from the hockey gods that the Canadiens weren't fated to play this way. You'll recall that the last time they signed a tough guy didn't work out so well.
Right.
And maybe there's
Another George.
And maybe there's an idea here that this is not how this team is meant to play. And I doubt very much that that's the message that will be received. But maybe that's the message that should be received. And yes, it's going to require a rethink in terms of the way that they go out and get these guys. But the fact is, maybe they're going to end up having to play Mikael Bourneval in the 4th line. How is that a bad thing?
Right.
He's the fastest skater on the team, probably, and a skilled 21-year-old kid.
You know what? I'm crossing my fingers and hoping the Detroit Red Wings that are coming into this division that don't use that style of hockey win this division, handily, go into the playoffs and do well to show some of these teams you don't have to punch your opponent out in the face to win a hockey game.
The Red Wings are like 41-19 against the East in like the last 4 or 5 years, right? Like it's this can be done.
Yeah, I'm wishing them luck.
But I have no faith that it actually will be done.
Sean, Jeremy, thank you so much for joining us in our first in-studio panel, by the way.
Very fancy.
Yes,
Very
thank you all
fancy,
for joining
has
us
to be
as
said.
well. We'll keep you up to speed on the Canadian season with Montreal Connected this year.
Coming up next.